will be talking to Salil Vanvari. It is my dear pleasure to introduce Salil because he's actually one of my very close friends, and he will be talking about what it means to be a good intern. Salil is actually currently a software engineer at Facebook, and he has had a lot of experience both being an intern and also working with interns. So really take his advice to heart and ask questions if you have any. But now I would love to turn it over to Salil.
Hey everyone, my name is Salil, as I just introduced. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so here's the fun thing, right? So Ina approached me, I want to say what, 3 weeks ago with this interesting question. The question was, look, we need to give this talk. We need to tell like 9 new interns, what does it mean to be a good intern? And honestly, that was a very challenging question for me. Like I thought about it and I was like, hey, it's not easy to actually figure out what it means to be a good intern. And so I did what I do best. I was like, cool, it's a tough question. I'm gonna poll the audience, okay? I have a group chat with about 25 friends. Collectively, these 25 friends have had over 80 internships. So you can think of like hundreds of different kinds of internships. They've gone all over the place, whether it's like Washington, D.C. to do government internships, or out here in Silicon Valley doing coding internships, or in New York doing some banking internships, right? So all over the place. And they gave me some fairly solid advice. I was like, what do I tell incoming interns? Well, what is it that they would actually want to hear about? And so I took a few screenshots, and I'm gonna take liberty here and like show you guys what these screenshots actually are. This is all, by the way, with their permission, so don't take any of this as like I just screenshotted stuff. All right, so here's some of this advice, right? Like, don't be afraid to be open with your manager or engineers you're interning with in your one-on-ones. Great advice, would highly respect this. Tell them to ask for new opportunities, maybe not directly with what they're responsible for. So these friends were very serious, they gave you guys some good advice. Next up is some not so serious advice, although it's half serious, it's up to you guys how you want to take it. Get constant feedback, aim for a return offer, learn stuff, and then like question mark, interns with an internship, it's gonna change, you're gonna have to figure it out. That's a huge part of what being an intern is all about. Here are 2 really fun ones. Buy donuts sometime during your first week for the team, and message on Slack saying you have donuts on your desk to come by and say hi. It's not really possible during COVID, but I highly recommend, if not this internship, in a future internship, you definitely try something like this. As I'll kind of go into later on this talk, people is the most important part of an internship. You learn so much more from the people you're around, as well as like others who are there during your internship, right? That's how you grow networks. That's how you connect with people. So that's a huge part of this. Another great one was, it's time to develop soft skills. School is what taught you all this technical stuff, all this like interesting knowledge. Now is when you take that, you apply that to the real world. Clearly very good advice. All right, another one that I got was, get your work done, read documentation, and don't die. That seems like fairly good advice. As an intern, your goal should be to survive and make your way to the end of it. That's when you will learn the most. So please take that to heart. Make sure you guys do a great job. But this is what a ton of friends had to say, right? But this still doesn't help answer the real question. Like, what does it actually mean to be a good intern? And before I start breaking that down for you all, I wanted to go about this in like a step-by-step format. I want to first talk about, what it means, like what is an internship? Why would you even want one? And then from there, once we answer those questions, we can talk about what it actually means to be a good intern here. Before I continue, I'm going to actually give a bit of a background, and I also want to set the stage for what this talk is actually going to look like, right? I want this talk to be something where you guys engage with me. So I would highly encourage you guys to all turn on your videos, and then I will be having segments where I ask questions. I will ask you guys for those answers. And if folks aren't actually responding, I'm just going to call on people that I see on my screen. So be prepared for that, okay? We'll get there very, very shortly. A little bit about myself. The real question is why am I here? Why am I kind of giving you guys this spiel? Here's kind of my general background here. Education. So I went to high school out here in the Bay at Bellarmine. I don't know how many of you all are actually familiar with that school, but it's an all boys private high school in San Jose. Did a couple of very interesting things there. I'm trying to highlight just some of the other really cool stuff. It's part of speech and debate. And then I also created this dance competition out there called Nazara, or I guess it's not a competition, just dance showcase. From there, I went to Cal, so not too far from home, right up the corner in Berkeley. Over there, I was actually part of a dance team for 3 years. 2 of those years was as a part of UC Berkeley as well. All right. So next up, from the professional side of my career, right? I started actually doing a job. I actually didn't start with an internship. To some degree, I think that's a little bit of a misnomer. Really, it was an internship, but we classified that as a job at the time. It was with a summer tech camp called Digital Media Academy. And essentially what I was tasked with doing was helping this summer tech camp run from the tech side of things, right? So every summer we'd deploy like hundreds of computers across the country. And it was my job to make sure all those computers were functional all of the time. So that's what I did for actually 3 years. I started doing that in high school. So probably around the same age as you guys. It was between my junior and senior year when I started it, did it the summer after, and then this first summer of my college experience as well. From there, I actually did an internship in the Bay Area at a place called Cohesity. So this was a tiny startup, at least at the time. It was only like 80, 90 people big. Today, it's a multi-billion-dollar company, but that's a whole separate thing. I interned there, and that was my first real software engineering internship, right? I used that as kind of a launch pad to go on to Facebook. Interned there the following summer. Thankfully, I got a return offer from Facebook and eventually end up returning to Facebook for my full-time job. But in between that time period, I actually also interned at another place. It was another very tiny startup called Ongo, except unlike the first one, when I say tiny here, I'm talking about 4 people big startup. So it was at the stage where basically there were very few people and a ton of problems to solve. And that's what we were kind of approaching there. I will give a lot more background about this and just some sense as to like why I'm telling you these things. In my talk, I'll reference some of these like different places that I've worked at to give you guys an idea of like where I'm coming from, right? I have my own biases as to like what I think a good intern should be. And these are some of the things that help shape those direct biases. Also, you guys might be wondering, why is there a cat and like a phoenix over here? So the 2 teams I've worked on at Facebook, actually, by the way, their mascots are those things. So first was a kitten, and the second, my current team is actually a phoenix. Both things that I think are cute and fun. All right, so that's great and all. That was kind of like a lot of words. So I wanted to give some pictures to these time frames as well. The leftmost picture here, by the way, is me right after my first interview for that first job. As surprising as that seems. So we took this right outside of the parking lot. The second image there is actually during my interview at Facebook. So again, these are like pretty fond memories of mine. And then the last one here is like actually during my time while working at Facebook. I think it was only taken like 5-6 months ago. Anyway, yeah, this is just to give a little bit of context. I'm not a robot, I'm a human being. Here's some cool pictures associated with those times. Okay, all right, now let's actually start getting into the meat of this thing, right? So I personally want to hear from you all. What do you guys think an internship actually is, right? You are sitting in the middle of one. inAtalent has given you guys this wonderful opportunity to become interns. What do you actually think an internship means?
I think it's like where someone gains like work experience working for an organization or company to just like practice working in a certain field.
Okay, that's a cool answer. I like that.
Similar to what Sejal said, it's something where you're working with a company or organization in ways that both you and the company will benefit in some way.
I like that. Very true. Both you and the company will benefit quite a bit from an internship.
I'd say it's an opportunity to explore a career option without, anything binding.
Yep. Also a great answer. Internships are a perfect place for you all to get a chance to dip your feet in what industry actually looks like, and then use that experience to kind of push yourself to either go further down that path or realize, hey, this is not for me, and I need to make some switches or changes in my own lifestyle. Yeah, so these are great answers. Thank you to the 3 of you who helped provide those answers. I'm gonna break this down in my style. So as I told you guys, I'm an ex-speech and debater, right? So I tend to break almost everything down into 3 points. Don't know why, it's just a habit speech and debaters have. But yeah, so I'm gonna answer this question in a few ways. First and foremost, you really bring value to an organization, right? So when I say what is an internship, really, I guess I'm asking from the company perspective, right? Like, why would a company or an organization want to bring on people who are really inexperienced to do stuff? What do they actually have to gain from this? And the answer is actually quite a bit. So I talked to several interns. They were like, internship, I'm just there learning, but that's not the case. You're actually providing quite a bit of value to these organizations. And I personally break it down as three major ways in which you provide your value. The first and foremost is ideas, right? You all are coming from an educational background where you've spent the last 18 years learning really cool things, or however many years learning a lot of really cool things. Now in your head, there are millions of ideas that are running around that have yet to be like corrupted, or not corrupted is not the right word, but like molded to the way that kind of businesses operate today. Your fresh ideas is what drives a lot of businesses forward, right? I will tell you this from at least the Facebook perspective, some of our best products actually came about from interns. They had ideas and they did stuff, and eventually those became real products. For example, the canonical example that we always like to use is, if you guys know, like if you on Facebook, if there's like a profile picture, like there's like a frame around it sometimes, that was a product that was completely thought up and built by an intern. They were like, hey, that's a cool thing that we can possibly do. Let's get it done. And so that's just one example of like a very clear idea that an intern had and then went ahead and implemented. So your ideas matter a lot to organizations. That's what drives these organizations forward, right? You get new, fresh ideas and you use those in your current organization. Okay, the second major thing, projects, right? An internship is a great way for a company or organization to hand you a project that normally may or may not have been getting done, right? They need new talent to be able to come in and do a lot of this work. This is very important, very critical work, and they need someone to do it. This is a great chance for them to hand off some of this work to an intern and say, hey, you should drive this, you should get this done, and we want to see what the result here is. Again, from personal experience, every internship I've been a part of has had a central project or multiple projects that I have been in charge of kind of leading and executing on. So whether it is like, all right, currently we have to build this feature into the app. All right, go ahead, go do that. Or we need to define a future strategy for what markets we're going to attack. These are the types of things that you can easily package in a 3 to 6 month project and hand to an intern that's coming in and say, look, we trust you enough to be able to deliver and execute on this. And that's exactly another way that you're providing value to this organization. The last bit here. So organizations will benefit because they have the opportunity to give you future employment, right? What that kind of means is a lot of internships are actually geared towards giving you what I would say is a 3 to 6 month long interview. They provide a perfect opportunity to test candidates, see how they perform in the actual working environment, and understand whether this is a person who is fit for this company in the future. So this third piece, in my opinion, especially since, as I understand it, a lot of you guys are still in high school, is not as critical, but it is worth thinking about for maybe a future internship, right? You're bringing value to this organization because they're also getting a chance to work with you and get to understand if you're a good fit for this company for future potential employments. So that's the way that I answer, like, what is an internship? Like, what does an organization gain from like having you guys as interns? It boils down to like one key thing. You are their best asset. Like, in all honesty, interns is really what drives a lot of these organizations forward, both from a perspective of having fresh talent, ideas, fresh pool of people to do new and interesting projects, as well as giving them a base to build their future employments or employees out of, right? Very critical stuff. But this leads us to another pretty important question. So I just told you that businesses and organizations like get a ton of value from having you as an intern. But why do you want an internship? What do you really gain from this, right? It's one thing to say that, like, the businesses gain a ton or organizations gain a ton from interns, but does that really mean that you are going to get value out of it? And so that's what I'm going to say is my next question for you all. What do you personally think you are going to gain from an internship?
I think that, like, from my perspective at least, I would want to like learn new skill sets, more like hard and soft skills from an internship.
Yep, very valuable. You get both industry experience and at the same time you get a great view into how like interact in a business or organizational perspective.
I think internships basically just give exposure and experience. You get to learn things from it.
All right, very much so.
So I think in an internship, you can meet a lot of new people who can serve as future references. And like, if you continue with the same field, like they could serve as future references who could help you later on.
Yep, very much so. The network of people you get from an internship is, in my opinion, a super critical place. All right, I love those answers. And all three of those answers actually show up in these three specific places that I have highlighted here. What do I get from being an intern? Well, outside, here's the way that I break it down, right? There are three major things that you really are rewarded with by having an internship. The first is an internship provides you an interesting sandbox environment for you to able to learn new skills, right? Normally, if you're just like out and about in the real world, you don't get this interesting opportunity where you can just like learn and like try things, and failure is like completely okay and doesn't have major implications. Internships provide that area, right? They give you both the support as well as a place where failure is allowed. You get to learn new things without the complete like scare or fear that you're not going to good enough to do something. Internships are meant to be places where you kind of gain those very experiences, right? All right, next, I think a internship really gives you a huge network of talented and amazing people. There is never been an internship that I've heard of where the people who came out of the internship did not, at the very least, meet 5 to 10 new people. And these are people from all different kinds of experience levels, right? We're talking about people who are either your age and you get to meet them and they have this fresh, different perspective from you, to people who are older or more senior or more experienced than you are, right? Even getting to talk to someone who's been like working a type of job for the last 10 years, you get to understand the way that they view the world as well as break down problems. This is a very interesting kind of behavior pattern, right? You don't get that from places like universities. At universities, you get a diversity of thought, but typically within your experience level, right? Everyone's coming at it typically right after high school. So you're meeting a lot of people who are going to give you fresh ideas, but at the same time, don't have the experience levels that you will find within an internship. So that's one of the other huge major wins here. The third one I will point out is a chance to create value, right? I think during your education, one of the fundamental things that you kind of don't really get a chance to do is this thing that I will refer to as creating value. Typically in an education, it's one-sided, right? It's like consumptive. You take in information and then you write it down on a test, and then you take in more information, you write it down on another test, so on and so forth. Here in an internship, you actually get the chance to act on that education. You get to say, hey, I learned all these things and let me produce something with everything that I've learned. And that is the first step into coming into the real world. You get to learn how your skills actually produce value for other people. All right, I'm gonna break this down a little bit. These are fairly important and meaty topics. So we're gonna go slightly further into the weeds here. So when I talk about sandbox to learn new skills, right? One of the crazy things that I think people don't realize is that an internship really gives you like a chance to also figure out what you like and don't like. I think someone mentioned this earlier today, but with this internship, right, or any internship, you really get a chance to explore, hey, in the real world, this is how I'm going to be applying my skills. Did I enjoy doing that? If the answer is yes, then you should 100% keep doing everything you are doing. If the answer is no, now is the perfect time where you can take that and say, look, this is not something I am happy to keep doing. So I'm going to pivot my current understanding of the world and find something else that I'm more passionate or I care to do more. And so that's another huge portion about learning some of these new skills. I have several examples of this. So for example, I had several friends who actually went to DC and did internships in different political organizations, right? They came out of these organizations, realized, look, politics is just not for me. You know, I'm not having fun doing this type of work. So then they said, okay, these are the skills that I currently have, and here's another opportunity. They then pursued business internships the following summer or following year and realized this is much better for me, and then pivoted a lot of their career decisions on those internships. Similarly, I've had folks who've come in and done CS internships, or friends who've come in and done like CS internships, realize, look, you know, coding 24/7, that's not my thing. I really do not appreciate like sitting in front of the computer and doing that all day. Instead, I want to be an idea person. I want to go build new, interesting ideas. And so they realized product design was more their speed and went ahead and did that. All are interesting examples where, you know, this is the time where you get to learn how the industry views those specific skills and uses them, and then see if you fit into those. And obviously, even if you don't, there's also always a chance it's maybe just the organization where you don't fit into, and you realize, okay, these are the things that I need to change about the future organization I'm going to work for, and then you go ahead and make those changes. That's one of the other like sub wins, I would say, about learning new skills, right? You get that opportunity here. Okay, in terms of meeting new people, right? So obviously, fresh perspectives, always a good thing. They change how you view the world, and generally that leads to positive change rather than negative change. The more ideas you grapple with, the more people of different backgrounds you talk to, the more you're going to like understand the world in a more holistic manner. To further this, the second major win is obviously, as you all have already mentioned, these people are also your network. The word, in my opinion, is kind of weird, like the word network, but essentially you can think of it as people who have put trust in you and who you have put trust in a professional environment, right? And what this means is when you are out there looking for new opportunities, or you have ideas and need someone to like bounce it off of, your network or the group of people who like trust you in a professional setting are going to be the people you go to. A great example of this, actually, so as I told you, right, like I had several internships over my career so far. Actually, the second two, so the Facebook internship and the internship at Ongo, I only got because I had friends who had their own networks, in the sense that I had very close friends who were working at Facebook. And so I approached them, I was like, hey, I want to work here too. And they were like, okay, this is a recruiter that I worked with when I was trying to intern here. You should talk to them. And boom, that resulted in getting an internship there. Similarly, then in the future, I was like, look, I want to work at a startup and see what that life is like. One of my friends is a startup founder, and he knew a whole bunch of other startup founders. So he sent them a message. He was like, hey, you know, I've got this really cool person that I know really well, looking for these opportunities. Anyone interested? And someone reached out, and I was like, hey, this is awesome. You know, and that's how I landed the next internship. These are just some practical examples as to like how the network of people you are close to can actually be of value to you as well. And similarly, in a network, you know, you should also provide value. So if there's opportunities that others are reaching out to you for, this is kind of the launch pad for a lot of that. So it's a bi-directional like graph, if you want to think about it that way. All right. The last thing, so creating value comes in many, many, many forms. I will go over a few. There is an infinite number of these, so I will refrain from spending all day talking about this section. First things first, right? You get to work on projects that normally you would definitely not get to work on outside, because you have the support of an organization that also wants to get that same project done. That's a chance for you to create value and see what the real world actually has in store for you. Next, so this is an interesting one. You actually get to put like experience on your resume. So what this means is typically when someone is hiring, right, they look for experienced individuals. That's just because they want to see that someone else trusted you with professional work, and you were able to do that professional work. And therefore, when they hand you more difficult work, you'll be able to do that. And so that's what putting something on your resume means. It's like a signaling that, look, someone else has trusted you in a professional sense. And so that's value that you get out of completing an internship. All right, the last one. So maybe not this internship, but in future internships, you may or may not also be paid. Getting money for the first time is a huge experience, and I would highly encourage eventually all of you to do that. And that is just directly creating value for yourself. The first time you earn a paycheck, by the way, you'll realize some interesting things. So my first paycheck was like $10 an hour. And what I realized was, look, with this money, it would cost me like 2 hours of working somewhere to get one Subway sandwich. And that's when like my mind like was boggled. I was like, whoa, that's a lot of work to like get a Subway sandwich. So yeah, definitely something that often, most likely all of you guys will learn through an internship, right? You'll get that first paycheck at some point, and that's just value for you to understand how the world works in a financial sense. Okay, that was a lot of me speaking at you. Now to the actual meat of the question. What does it mean to be a good intern? We've broken down why organizations want you. We've broken down why you want to be an intern. What does it mean to actually be a good intern? What behavioral patterns do I need to exhibit to be good at being an intern?
So I want to answer this question.
Awesome.
So I feel like to be a good intern, you kind of have to have like a good attitude and finish all your work on time, like whatever the project manager gives you. Be responsible and be honest, like integrity.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Those are really great points. I think what you have mentioned is, you'll see in the next slide, but that's the first thing that I say, you know, as what you need to do to be a good intern. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
All right, 2 more.
I think you definitely have to work hard, and as advice said previously in one of your like message screenshots, if you finish your work, you should definitely ask for more work.
Yep, very much so. You know, always proving your that you are able to do more and more complicated things is a huge, huge win for you.
I think it's important to be, at least if not close, then be like good with all of your other co-workers or like the people you're working with. And I also think it's important to stay organized.
Yep, very much so. So people, as we mentioned, right, one of the biggest wins of being an intern is the people that you get to be around. So being good with or like understanding or learning from those people, that's one of the best things you can do as an intern. All right, thank you. You guys have some great answers. Moving forward. So I, again, as a speech innovator, I will break this down into 3 answers. The first 3 things that came to my mind is you need to learn how to be a better, or you need to become better at learning things. You need to, similarly, you also need to interact with a ton of people. And the third is you need to generate value, right? Those are the 3 ideas that we already talked about. So now let's see like the behaviors that you should do in order to get there. All right, so how to learn better and to learn more. First and foremost, something that no one answered here was you need to ask questions. So funnily enough, you are surrounded by people who have answers to a lot of questions. You should make it your mission to ask as many questions as necessary for you to get a better understanding of what needs to get done, right? The way you learn is not just by like being in yourself and then expecting information to come to you. What you need to learn to do is actually learn to ask questions so that you can bring information to yourself. This is an interesting thing because often people forget that, you know, in a company or in an organization, people have gone through exactly what you are going through already. And they might have answers or might have ways to like quickly get you to a solution. And so I highly, highly encourage all of you to ask all the correct questions, ask as many times as possible. A few examples of this. So during my first internship at Facebook, this is where I discovered this thing called Bitcoin because someone was talking about it. I had no idea what it was. So I asked, I was like, hey, what is that thing? They gave me this brief explanation. I was like, wow, that's interesting. And then from that point onward, when I did my own research, and just by having like talked to a person during my internship, I was so much more willing to like understand and learn about all these interesting ideas. Similarly, at Cohesities, all right, my first like internship at a startup, I asked a ton of questions, maybe not even relating directly to my job, but I was like, you know, how do you guys run a startup? Like, what does it mean to be a startup? And people were extremely willing to talk to me. I actually had, I want to say 18 one-on-ones during that internship where I just talked to various people in the company, everything from product marketing, sales, web design, development, including the CEO. And I was just like, tell me everything you know, or like, here are a few questions that I have for you. And they answered them. And I learned a ton just by like talking to people and asking the right questions. So that's, I think, one major thing. Next, do difficult stuff, right? You are not just tasked with doing your own work. You should seek out the work that is actually difficult to do. In reality, nothing is difficult. It is only difficult because you haven't done it yet. And so since you're an intern and since your job here is to learn as much as you can, please do try to do the work that is intimidating to you, right? The best advice I ever got was when you are comfortable doing something, that means it's easy. You should be uncomfortable, especially during an internship, because that's how you're growing the fastest. And that's what you're here to do, right? You're here to grow into like the best version of yourself. So that's the fundamental thing that I will say about that. All right, the last one I will say, monkey see, monkey do, but monkey also iterate. What does this mean? So you get a unique opportunity. There's people here who've been doing what you're trying to do for quite some time. Take your time to like learn from them, look at what they're doing, and then replicate a lot of that. But at the same time, don't just replicate, right? Copy pasting is rarely ever good, but looking at what they're doing and then applying your own unique values or your own unique personality to a problem, that's really where you get to shine. So that's what I mean when I say monkey see, monkey do, but also iterate. Take what other people are doing who you respect and admire, and then add your own twist to it. Easy ways to do this, by the way, as an intern. So I will talk to some of the coders in the room. Read everyone's code like as much as you can. There's really experienced people like solving problems. You can solve the same problems in similar manners, but you will know what those are just like reading what they're doing. Next, for my consultants and business people, you are probably going to be given a case, and your job is going to be like, break down this case and answer these problems. Well, go look at how other people have broken down cases in the past. You know, if not here at inAtalent, then outside, just Google stuff. That's how you are going to learn the most. So highly recommend doing these things. They're going to make you much better. And the final piece here, attend as many meetings as possible. So as funny as it is, meetings is where companies work collaboratively. It's where you get in a room and solve a very tough problem together. So if you guys learn how to do that, then it's going to be way better for you. Yeah, that's, I think, some basic things you guys can do to learn better and to learn more. And this applies not only for inAtalent, but all future internships you may or may not have as well. Next, how to make use of the awesome people you are going to be interning with. First answer to this, interact with absolutely everybody, right? There should not be a person who you leave your internship from being like, I have no idea who that person is or what they do or like what is so awesome about them. Everybody has something that's awesome. It's your job to figure that out, right? And also, you have something in common with everybody, and it's also your job to figure out what that commonality between you and these people are, and then use that to your advantage, right? That's how you make friends. You find commonalities, and then you kind of do that. Here, you're also building that same professional environment. So that's why I'm saying, as much as you can, find time to at least talk to everybody, learn about them, tell them about yourself. That's going to be one of the best things that you can do during this time. The second portion here, as an intern, you are going to likely have a mentor or a manager. Your communication with that person is absolutely critical. So whether it's here or in the future, what ends up happening is those people are the ones that are in charge of actually giving you work, as well as monitoring your progress on that same work, right? As a result, the more open you are with your manager and the more time you spend talking to them, the better you're going to have a sense of like how well you are doing or what you need to do to get better. So this goes hand in hand with feedback. One of the best things as an intern you can do is ask for feedback. Be like, hey, how am I doing? What can I do to be better? And your mentor or manager will answer that question. Likely they've already thought about these things, but they're waiting for you to ask that. And then with that feedback, you iterate. You say, okay, cool. They said, like, I should be better at communicating. I should make sure to like reread the work before I present it, all sorts of those things. Take that information, put it in your head, and then iterate. Those are some of the very key things you can do with the amazing network of people that you have available to you and how you can make use of them more. This is an image that I will show as an example. So because of some of the really awesome people that I worked with in the past, right, we were actually given the opportunity to meet Drew Houston. So I don't know if you all know him, but he's the CEO of Dropbox. And because of my internship at Ongo and subsequently so a whole bunch of other friends and families, we were actually given the opportunity to meet him in person. We actually got a chance to take the selfie. Ina's also right there in the bottom right, in case you guys can see. Also, you know, she knows some amazing people, and as a result, got to meet even more amazing people. So make use of those networks of people. You never know what's going to happen. All right, the last bit, right? So this is nearing the end of my talk before I let you guys all ask me whatever questions you have. But the last thing that I would like to say is on the topic of how do I generate value, right? So we already talked about, like, you have to finish your work, you can ask for more, all those really fun things. So I will just break this down as like the do's and don'ts of generating value, so to speak. So complete your work that is assigned to you. Especially if there's a timeline, please try to stick to that timeline, right? The more you do that, the better it is for you, for the organization. Next, help your colleagues and your organization. So this can come in many forms. One example that I'll give you is, let's say you're working on a project and you, instead of reinventing things from scratch, or you had to invent things from scratch for your project, you can templatize that so that the next person who comes in and does this work just can use your template and make use of it. Easy things to do, right? Anything you can do that provides value to the organization is going to be better. Next, use all the facilities provided to you by your internship. Your internship has surprisingly provided you with a ton of things. Even in inAtalent, they're organizing a series of 10 talks. Make as much use of that as you possibly can. These are opportunities for the internship to both attract you to come work for them, as well as provide value back to you. It is your job to make use of that. No one else is going to force you to do these things. So you have to make it your mission that, since I want to be a good intern, I have to do this. All right, next, the last piece that I'll say here in the do's section, make sure you do provide your ideas to the organization. As I said before, your ideas is what keeps these organizations running. So please do provide those ideas. Some things that I heard from friends was like, you know, if you're working on a company that's making a product, use that product and then write a summary or like a review of that product and then take it to the right people. They will appreciate hearing your feedback associated with these things, right? Definitely do all of these things. These are going to help make you generate so much more value, both for yourself and for your organization. The last bit here, the do nots of generating value. So funnily enough, if you create a burden on your colleagues and mentors, that's a negative thing. That leads to generating less value, both for your organization and for yourself. Some examples of this, right? So when you have questions, I highly recommend first doing an initial set of research. The guidelines I have on this, like if you have a question, you're stuck, spend 30 minutes just researching it first. If after doing that, you're unable to answer it, then go to your mentors, go to your friends, go to your colleagues, ask them, hey, what do I, you know, how do I do this? What do I need to do? And they'll be happy to answer. But if you show up and like the first time you have every question, you go ask it, it's gonna lead to this situation where everyone doesn't trust you to be able to do things. So that's what I would like to say here. You know, don't create extra work, do create the right work and do the right work. Last thing that I'll say is do not forget to have fun. So as I said, right, part of an internship is learning what you like and don't like. Not having fun, seriously examine what you are doing after the end of the internship and say, what do I need to change so that in the next internship, I do actually have fun. Yeah, that's it for the do's and do nots of kind of generating value. It's how you will become a much better intern, both for yourself and for your organization. And these applied, you know, going way into the future. All right, this kind of takes me towards the end of my talk. I want to give a quick disclaimer here. So everything I've told you guys, I've kind of spoken a lot today. These are kind of my thoughts. These are the ways that I've approached internships in the past. These are not really like one size fits all kind of solutions. You guys are gonna have to invent that for yourself, right? Every internship is different. Everybody's gonna have a different experience with what it means to be a good intern. Really what I would like you guys to take away from this from this talk is how to kind of think about that, right? We went through a 3-step process. Figure out why an organization wants to have interns, figure out what it is you want to get out of the internship, and then use that to answer what are the behaviors that I need to exhibit to actually become a good intern. So in all honesty, if you go through this process by yourself and figure out these things for yourself, you will be in a much better state. But yeah, that's it for me. I have left some self-reflection questions for you all. Feel free to do them at any point. It'll give you a platform to say, hey, these are the things that I want. This is what I expect. Do this offline on your own time, whenever you want. And then otherwise, yeah, I'm now ready for Q&A.
I have a question, if that's okay. Salil, what do you think is the biggest misconception about being an intern / having an internship? What is something that is maybe a misconception that everyone has that we can clarify really quick?
I would say that a common misconception that people have about internships is that you don't do anything meaningful, right? A lot of people view internships as like, oh, I'm going to be going and getting like coffee. That's not really an internship, right? That's kind of like an admin position or something like that. An internship is really, as I described, it's a place where you gain value and you provide value. So in any position, when you're hired as an intern, you are given respect, you are given projects, you are given work to do. And that's something that I highly encourage. Like, don't think your work doesn't matter. It does, and it does show up. All the work I've done in my previous internships is for the most part still in use by those companies, right? Or it provided meaningful ways for those companies to actually change. In the same way, any internship you're a part of, please make sure you take it seriously and do provide as much value as you can.
So you've done a lot of internships in the past. What are some of the fun things you've done that, you look back 5 years from now, you still enjoy?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'll give you a few really cool ones. So at my Facebook internship, our team was doing this design sprint where we were like, okay, we got to invent this new design for some cool things. As a result, we're like, hey, we're going to go down to LA and we're going to do some research. And so they flew all of us, the entire team, down to LA, including the interns. So I was an intern at this point in this team. And we stayed there. We got a chance to, every day we were eating some really nice, fancy food. And then at the same time, me and my fellow interns, we would spend the nights, talking, hanging out in the hotel. It was an amazing experience from that perspective. But then what was really cool is, I don't know, have you guys seen those product testing things where you have a glass wall, which is a one-way mirror? So people inside the room can't see outside the room, but people from the outside can look inside. So we were in that situation. We built some mock-ups and then had someone talking to 10 people and showing them these mock-ups and asking for feedback. And we were on the other side of this wall, taking notes, oh, this person thought this happened. So that was really cool. I've never expected to be able to go do user research in that way. But I guess that's one of the fun things that happened during internships. Obviously, I made a ton of friendships during internships. A lot of my friends come from those time periods. So
yeah, thank you.
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice you would give to any of the high schoolers during their first internship?
Yeah, it's a good question. Honestly, so this is your internship where you figure out how to be an intern, right? So what I told you is kind of my summary after having gone through 3 internships. What I highly recommend to you is use this as a time to figure out how you behave in a professional environment. You get to learn from everyone else who's already been in a professional environment for quite some time. And I would say, absorb as much as you can. Here's when you form your own opinions about what does it mean to be a good intern? How do I, or even a good employee, right? And that's what my biggest suggestion to you would be. Make sure you spend the time to do a lot of self-reflection. The more you think about how you are doing, as well as the internship that you are currently engaging in, the better you are going to be as an intern. Self-reflection is the number way of improving and growing.
Okay, thank you.
So I also have a quick question. So how would you recommend getting an internship if you don't have any experience in the field yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, the best way to get internships is to prove that you can provide value, right? Now, this comes from like several different ways. Obviously, it's very hard to get that first internship, but that first internship will snowball and become better and better, or like whatever internships you're like gearing towards. At the same time, doing your own projects on the side is a huge thing that you can do to bolster like your resume or like what other companies or organizations see that you can do. If you can, for example, like create your own project that normally you would do in an internship, but like outside of it, then you have such a big leg up. You've basically proven, look, I can already do the work that you want me to do. Here it is. This is why I think you should hire me. That's the way that I think you should go about it.
Okay, thanks.
Also, actually, just to really quickly follow up on that one, another important thing is like education is important, right? But at the same time, being able to prove how you can use your education, that's more important to an internship or a job. They care about what you can build, not what you know, because knowledge does not always translate to what you can build or what you can do. So you have to prove the action part of that situation.
I have a question. What would you say is the most valuable skill that you learned from one of your internships?
Ooh, I would personally put being able to effectively collaborate with large groups of people as the biggest thing that I've learned through any internship. It's not easy to do a project where you're working with effectively like 10 or 15 other people, right? You have to learn how to like manage expectations, figure out who's working on what and how things are actually going to get accomplished. And so that's something that internships actually taught me, how to effectively do that. So during my first internship, just to give you some background, I actually had to work with another intern and we were tasked with a single project, right? It was like, hey, here's a project. The two of you are kind of in charge of getting this done by the end of the summer. The hard part wasn't the actual project. It was like figuring out how the two of us were going to collaborate, you know, what that looked like, who's going to do what piece, and at what point will it be done? Are we dependent on each other? You know, how we do all of those fun things, and who's going to actually communicate out when things get done. So that, in my opinion, was probably extremely valuable because that's how you learn to be in these professional environments.
Thank you.
Hey, Salil, I'd like to ask a question, if that's
Sure.
okay. And it has to do with big picture stuff. So given that inAtalent is a 4-year-old baby that's just really blossoming in great ways, can you talk to the interns about stuff on how they can make so much difference and what that means to the world and how that translates? So understanding mission, understanding some of the nuances of that.
Sure. I think that's a great question, right? Like one of the key things is inAtalent is in a place where work that you do here will flourish for the next however many years, let's say 10, 15 years. And you are currently still in this place where you're like building this, or like, I guess the flower is just starting to bud. So any work that gets put in at this point really is what makes the blossom even bigger than it is anticipated to be, right? As interns, you guys have that ability. All the projects you will do set the stage for inAtalent both to like explode and become this amazing thing. And not only that, you guys get to be the contributors that make that a reality. One of the key things that I always like to say is when you do an internship somewhere or on a team or whether you're doing a job, unless you're completely aligned with what you are trying to do, you're not like in your head, you're always going to have doubts, right? So I would make sure you are completely aligned with the overall mission because what you're trying to do is much bigger than what you're actually anticipating. And so making sure that's clear in your head now and that the value you're providing is going to like exponentially become bigger and more important as inAtalent keeps on growing. That's in my opinion, the biggest thing.
This has been a really insightful guest lecture for me also. I think what Saul really did a great job of talking about was really utilizing a platform, for example, inAtalent, and creating a legacy out of it, whether that legacy be through yourself and the skill set that you are able to pick up, or the legacy is that the product or service that you're working on will actually then be standing for years to come after you have left inAtalent, or after you are, into your adulthood. That's something that the more effort and time and work you put into creating that legacy, I think Salil really highlighted the value in that. So thank you, Salil, for coming and being our first guest lecturer of our inAtalent informational. And
of course, thank you so much for like having me. Thank you all for being a great audience and like listening through that. I spoke a lot. Hopefully I left you guys with at least something where you can take away and have both a better internship now and enjoy future successes that you all are destined to have.
Yes, and I'm sure that if any of you have questions after maybe thinking on this lecture or anything, I'm sure you can reach out to me and I will pass them along to Salil, or maybe Salil will, be available through LinkedIn or something in case you guys want to make that connection, because that was something he highlighted a lot. But thank you so much for coming, everybody, and we look forward to having you as interns for the next 2 months. So thank you all.
Thank you guys for setting that up too, by the way, inAtalent.